Hello there and welcome back to Void Dwarf Studios. With that awesome cool intro out of the way, let us now talk about an aspect of the Lumineth from Age of Sigmar, and possibly the big thing that sets these elves apart from all the others, including their high elven ancestors, and that is in the form of their worship and reverence of nature. Now don't get me wrong, elves in one respect or another do respect nature and try to live in a balance with it. However, the Lumineth have taken this to an extreme and have in fact formed spiritual bonds with the landscape around them. In Hysh, the mountains themselves are quite literally alive. There are spiritual beings who live on these mountains who have their own sentience. And during the age where the elves kind of, let chaos in and the mountains became, scarred is possibly the best way of putting it, this left them incredibly angry and incredibly vengeful against anything and everything that would seek to shatter the harmony that is nature. Now, when Teclis came out of his meditation, along with Selenar, and began this new trend of essentially teaching his elven mages to use the power of nature to draw their magical power from elemental creatures as opposed to the winds of magic themselves in a respectful way, which is very un-high elven. And in this manner, these elves sought after the spiritual power from elemental creatures. Right now, we are aware of the elves drawing upon the Elementar of the mountains and the Elementar of the wind. So starting with the mountains, this led to elves being essentially told to go to the highest peaks they can and seek to commune with the mountains. Now, this is a horrendously dangerous expedition to take under the best of circumstances. After Chaos had basically cracked and shattered most of Hysh, the mountains were not in a particularly forgiving mood, and there were no shortage of aspirants who tried to climb these mountains to seek the spirits above, who died of starvation, died in the sudden and unexplainable earthquakes, ground by interlocking stone. This was a very perilous task to try and get the elves to do a new form of magic. And in order to try and create this new bond with the mountains, the elves themselves would leave gifts, offerings. They would tie pretty things to small outcroppings of rock. They would leave jewels, they would attempt to make artistic patterns, anything they could think of to essentially bond with the mountain spirits. Some of them even fasted to the point where they would die. And ironically, it was the elves that chose to bring themselves to the brink of death whilst on these mountains that gave the spirits a new perspective of their elven inhabitants. The fact that they were willing to give their own lives in atonement for what the spirits felt was their own fault, it meant that their anger relented, and these Alarith mages found that they had new powers. Moss and algae would grow near them, creatures would offer them sustenance, the landscape would bloom and heal around them. This spiritual link that they started to slowly cultivate with the landscape eventually managed to blossom into the mountain's blessing itself. A new, strange, symbiotic relationship happened between the new Alrathi stone mages and the spirits themselves. Even their attitudes started to link themselves to their landscapes. So, for example, those who followed the mountains became more stern, more enduring, stoic, and these mages essentially became geomancers, able to shift the landscape to their will and draw upon the power of these spirits. And this, to its extreme, developed into avatars of the Hyshian peaks. Mountainous creatures the size of giants and taller sometimes that would stride forth and do battle against anything that would harm the balance of nature. This is not something that a mountain spirit does without deep thought or any kind of reckless abandon. This is only accomplishable through a deep relationship with an Alrathi stone mage. The spirits will agree to take on a form and march out to do battle. This ritual, by which a spirit of the mountain is drawn forth, is not a straightforward process. It takes a lot of time. The form is sculpted out of rock and stone, and these mountains that they have on their shoulders are their own ecosystems. Trees will sprout from them, life will live amongst them, even though it's a walking giant of a mountain, and even if an Alarathi mage is extremely skilled in their craft, this is impossible to achieve unless the spirit is willing. And at the end of the day, it is in fact the elemental spirit that will make the final decision and choose to come to their aid or not. But when they do, oh boy, this is something that no one in their right mind would want to face on a one-on-one situation. More than capable of crushing a Maw-crusher's skull, easily capable of just treading on anything humanoid and squashing them to jelly. These are terrifying aspects of the Earth. And when everyone saw them released, I believe the most common expression I heard was, "Oh holy cow," which I imagine is the last thing someone said when this thing decided to splat it with a hammer. Now, 99.9% of the time, these avatars are formed by the Arathi stone mages, except for one. The beautiful creature, the beautiful creature that we are looking at in this image is known as Avalanor, the Stoneheart King, a spirit from the Yimtrika Vertigneous Peaks. And he is unique. He is unique because he is the first avatar to have been formed without the assistance of a stone mage. He came to them under the counsel of Selenar, the spirit of Hysh's true moon who Teclis now hangs around with. And that great big red mountain on his shoulder is all ether quartz. That redonkulously magical substance that the elves like to get high on, draw power on. Yeah, it's an incredibly powerful being, even for an avatar of the mountain, and is considered to be one of the wisest entities in the realm. These spiritual creatures are not just colossuses of destruction and devastation. They are intelligent, articulate, and whilst it takes them time to formulate answers, their counsel has been sought after by the kings and advisors of the Hyashian realm for generations, due to the fact that they are very, very wise entities in existence since before Teclis and Tyrion even turned up in this realm. So starting off with your bog-standard basic stone mage, these individuals are one of Teclis' first disciples of the Elementari, literally bringing the might of the mountain to the battlefield. They can shift not only rocks and boulders, but they can even change the direction of gravity to make things really horrible for your opponent. They are particularly effective when they are joined together with the Alarathi Stone Guard, warriors who are sworn to protect the various temples and protect the stone mages whilst they do their thing. And of course, this is a wizard, with access to basic spells and their own unique one called Gravitic Redirection. Essentially, this turns gravity upside down and, well, that makes things really confusing for the opponent. Halving your opponent's movement characteristic and stopping them from being able to fly not only thoroughly screws over a Nighthorn army, but will screw over an awful lot of armies that rely on speed. And the Stone Guard are no slouches either. Wielding their stone mallets or diamond pick hammers, these guys and gals are more than capable of splatting anything that tries to get too close to your mage. But whilst these are cute and fun and all, this isn't why you're here. You want to know about the Alarathi spirit of the mountain. Sitting at a very comfortable 12 wounds and 10 bravery, this thing is not only not going anywhere, it's going to last a fairly long time. And its wonderful Stoneheart Warhammer and ability to stamp on you with its cloven hooves means that, you're not going to last very long. And to cap that all off, these spirits can also be generals for your army and have their own command ability, allowing them to pick a friendly elf model within 18 inches and adding 1 to their attack characteristic of that unit's melee weapons for a combat phase, which is dashed on sporting, I have to say, particularly when timed correctly. But this individual is it's not going anywhere anytime soon, and it's certainly going to make one hell of an impression. And the fact that you can have it as a general is just all kinds of hilarious in my mind. But then you get to Avalanor, and you find out how cute the normal avatars are. Avalanor is rocking 14 wounds, and he has an enhanced version of the previous command ability, where he can pick D3 friendly high elf units within 24 inches and add 1 to their melee attacks, which is quite ridiculous, and thank goodness these don't stack, because if you could use Avalanor's command ability plus a normal avatar's, yeah, that would just be all kinds of broken. So if you're fancying to build a Lumineth army around the concept of being very sturdy and strong, whilst of course you still have to take the obligatory Avalar Wardens and Sentinels, which in the previous video I have discussed and are by no means a bad pick, you can build the army around Avalanor and just have a redonkulously strong defense with a fantastic offense. Meaning that your poor unfortunate enemy has to choose between being skewered on spears splatted by giant mountains or being thrown up and down through someone screwing around with gravity. And I'm pretty sure I speak for everyone when that's a pretty sucky situation. I of course will talk about the Wind Elementari, but that will be for a separate video. Until next time, I hope you've all enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe, and check out the Patreon page. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much for helping this channel reach 185 subscribers. That's all kinds of amazing. I love you all so much. And I look forward to hearing from you all soon. Until then, take care everyone.